Hello everyone. Now I'd like to talk about hyperbolic functions. We have a definition for the hyperbolic functions. The hyperbolic sign x is equal to e to the power x minus e to the power negative x divided 2. And the hyperbolic cosine x is equal to e to the power x plus e to the power negative x divided 2. And hyperbolic tangent x is equal to e to the power x minus e to the power negative x divided by e to the power x plus e to the power negative x. Hyperbolic cosecant x is equal to 1 over hypersine x, and x is more than 0. Sorry, x is not equal to 0. X is not equal to 0. Hyperbolic secant x is equal to 1 over hyperbolic cosine x. Hyperbolic cotangent, x is equal to 1 over hyperbolic tangent x, and x not equal to 0. These are the rules for, or the definitions for, the hyperbolic functions. How to get the derivative for each one? The derivative of hyperbolic functions. ddx for hyperbolic sine x, it is equal to ddx for e to the power x minus e to the power negative x divided 2. Here e to the power x over 2, you can write it as half e to the power x if you divide e to the power x over 2 minus half e to the power negative x, and you can find the derivative for this one. The derivative for e to the power x is a natural exponential function. It is itself half e to the power x, and the derivative of x is equal to 1. Minus, it will be half e to the power negative x itself, okay, and the derivative for negative x, it is negative 1. Then it will be half e to the power x plus half e to the power negative x, which is equal e to the power x plus e to the power negative x divided 2, which is what? Which is hypercosine x. Then the derivative of hypersine is hypercosine. By the same way, you can get the derivative with respect to x for hypercosine x. It is the derivative for e to the power x plus e to the power negative x divided 2. Then 2 is a constant. What is the derivative for e to the power x? It is e to the power x plus e to the power negative x multiplied by negative 1. The derivative for negative x is negative 1 divided 2. Then it will be e to the power x minus e to the power negative x divided 2, which is equal hypersine x. Then ddx for hypercosine is hypersine, and the derivative for hypersine is hypercosine. Okay. What is the derivative for hypertangent? Hypertangent x. We know that hypertangent is e to the power x minus e to the power negative x divided e to the power x plus e to the power x, negative x. here you can get the derivative by applying the quotient rule. Okay, it is e to the power x plus e to the power negative x all square, and up it is e to the power x, so the derivative for the numerator here, it is e to the power x plus e to the power negative x multiplied by e to the power x plus e to the power negative x minus the derivative for down, it is e to the power x minus e to the power negative x multiplied by the numerator e to the power x minus e to the power negative x. Now it is e to the power x plus e to the power negative x all to the power 2, and up e to the power x plus e to the power negative x all square minus e to the power x minus e to the power negative x all square. And I think now e to the power x plus e to the power negative x over e to the power, it is 1 minus this over this, it is tangent hypertangent x, then 1 minus hypertangent x, 1 minus hypertangent x, it is hypersecant, hypersecant x. This is an identity for the hyperbolic function. Or you can say directly the derivative for hypertangent, it is the derivative with respect to x for hypersine x over hypercosine x, and this is the easier way. Then down it is hypercosine square x, and the derivative for sine, it is hypercosine x multiply hypercosine x minus the derivative for hypercosine is hypersine multiplied by the numerator hypersine x. Now it is, here hypercosine multiply, it will be hypercosine square x minus hypersine square x divided by hypercosine square x. Now it is hypercosine minus hypersine, it is 1 over hypercosine square x, and 1 over hypercosine, it is hypersecant square x. I think the same rule. By the same way, you can get the derivative or d dx for hypercotangent x, it is negative hypercosecant x square, and d dx for hypersecant x, it is negative hypersecant x hypertangent x, and d dx for hypercosecant x, it is negative hypercosecant x hypercotangent x. But if we change x to u, then I gonna find d dx for hypersine u. Here this is x and this is u. U is a function, is a differentiable function of x. Then it will be hypercosine